Good morning. A quick update following day 25 of the World Cup, and France are through to the final to face off against Argentina in the Qatari final 2022. Actually, a really good match between Morocco and France. I had expected the worst, and I got a much better match than I was expecting, so I'm very happy with that. But yes, this marks a back-to-back final for France. And well, can they do it? Is the very big question. So, looking at the hot topics today, as I said, we'll just have a quick stop tour today. So, France beat Morocco 2-0. There are stories coming through of illness in the French camp. We'll talk about whether or not this could be a concern. Back-to-back World Cup finals for France and what this looks like. What are their chances of winning? What does history show us? And the final lineup is complete, and by that I mean the final and also the third, fourth place playoff. So with that, let's get straight into it. Just looking quickly at some of the stats coming through from the match last night. Sorry, that's the wrong one. Obviously, I was teeing that up for later. Spoiler alert. Okay, it's not the result of Saturday's third, fourth place playoff, by the way. Um, it could be though. So France, obviously, yes, beating Morocco. Crucially for France, getting a very early goal. We haven't seen many of those in this tournament. It was Theo Hernandez. It was Griezmann and Mbappe that were looking quite dangerous. But in the resulting mix-up, I guess, in the box, the ball did fall to Hernandez. My goodness, he put it away. Did he ever? Muani then scored, I think it was within 40 seconds of coming on as a substitute for France as well in the 79th minute. And the stats are somewhat surprising, but actually there's a little bit of a trend here if we look at this and we think about France's last match as well against the UK, or England, sorry. Don't know where I was going with the UK. France only had 34% of the possession, whilst Morocco had 55% of the possession. The goals obviously going France's way. In terms of attempts on goal, we have 13 versus 14, as you can see. So not hugely different at all between both of these teams. Surprisingly, not hugely different at all. Shots on target 2 versus 1. So that's a 100% conversion rate coming through from the French team. And off target then 8 versus 6. Inside the penalty area, slightly more for France. They certainly looked dangerous when they got in there. And outside the penalty area, Morocco were attempting a few more than that. Apart from that, though, none of the other stats, I suppose, apart from the passing, really stood out. If we look at line breaks, everything like that, discipline, everything is pretty even. It's the passes. Look at that, 358 passes for the French team and 583 for the Moroccan team, with them completing, 518 of those. So very good passing going on there by Morocco. So what happened? What happened? How did Morocco dominate yet France won? We saw something very similar between Argentina and Croatia 2 nights ago as well. Well, the simple answer is France seem to have a style. They take an early lead, or they get in the lead, get in the front, and then they absolutely sit back. So this is clearly what they did against England as well. Was it a case of France not being good? No, it seems to be their tactic. If you have a player like Mbappe on the field, I was going to say on the bench. He was certainly not on the bench, on the field. Then counterattack is always going to be an option. And you could more or less argue that the second goal that France scored last night was a counterattack. And it was Mbappe that looked the most dangerous there. Before the goal got scored, it was all down to his work. And of course, then you have Griezmann in the midfield, who's kind of the playmaker, controlling everything. So it works really well for France, and that was what they were happy to do last night. Now, Morocco put in a great show. It's incredible to think that this goal on 5 minutes that Hernandez scored was the first goal Morocco have conceded in the entire World Cup. So that's how good they've been in this World Cup defensively. But we saw signs against Belgium that Morocco can certainly score if they need to. And yeah, they attacked France. They did attack. They had some very good opportunities. Some interesting looking opportunities as well. I'm thinking about the bicycle kick that nearly came off. It hit the post. So it was a very good performance from Morocco, but it wasn't good enough. Just like Argentina, France have those key players. They have the killer touch. They know exactly what they need to do to get a result. And it's going to be fascinating when France play off against Argentina, because they're both coming from a very similar mindset of having key players that can perform magic at certain moments in a match that can change the outcome of a match. So I don't think it's completely open and shut as to who's going to win that. If you'd asked me before the tournament, I would have said easily France, I think, would win that match. But not so sure anymore. I think it's going to be a very, very tight affair indeed. So with that, we do have the final lineup, and of course, this is what it looks like. We can see that it's Argentina versus France on Sunday at 3 p.m. On Saturday before that, we have Croatia against Morocco. Now, Croatia against Morocco is actually a repeat of the first group game between these two, and that's what you will have seen that had open earlier. No, that's the wrong one again. Hang on. Yes. That was a pretty dire affair. That was probably the type of match I was expecting last night and didn't receive, thankfully. But yeah, a 0-0 draw between Morocco and Croatia. Croatia bossed that one in terms of possession, so a little bit different from what we saw from Morocco last night, where they had the dominance in terms of possession, but Croatia had the majority of the possession. But yeah, look, attempts on goal, 6 versus 8, 2 of which were on target each. It was pretty dire in front of goal as well. There wasn't a lot going on. We were very concerned about following that match. So we didn't realize how good Morocco were at that point in time, which is an interesting perspective to take on this. But at the same time, we were also really concerned about Croatia not having any real strike options. Oh, I don't know how far they're going to go in this tournament. They could go out here following this a bad result against Morocco, and Belgium are in this group. Little did we realize that Belgium were not all up to it at all, and Morocco would be the star team to come out of this. Actually, this group performed fantastically, both Morocco and Croatia making it to the semi-finals. So it was an amazingly high quality group. Little consolation, I suspect, to Belgium, but that's the way football goes sometimes. So what are we going to expect on Saturday? Because a third, fourth place playoff, there's nothing really to play for. I know, yes, there's third place, but sometimes teams don't really care, and they might push out their subs, or they might go all out for it and say, yeah, look, we lose nothing by losing this match, but if we win, we get third place, and let's just throw everything we have at it. This, as we spoke about yesterday, could be the end of a golden generation for Croatia, so it would be very nice for them to take third place. Whereas for Morocco, what an opportunity. So actually, both of these teams might play for this. So we could have a very good match, or we could have a very cagey affair, which will be very similar to this 0-0 that we had when they first played each other in the first group match, way back, weeks ago. Well, it wasn't. It was probably about 2 weeks ago at this stage. But oh no, I like 3 weeks ago, considering yesterday was day 25, so it would have been at least 3 weeks ago. But yeah, that's how it goes. Hot topics, yes, the French illness. Yeah, I do want to talk about that ever so briefly. So 2 players on the French team were ill heading into the semi-final yesterday against Morocco. So it was Rabiot, I should say, and Upamecano, both of them displaying flu-like illness symptoms. Rabiot was so bad he actually stayed in the hotel. He didn't travel with the squad at all, so he had to stay in the hotel, and he was kind of quarantined away from everybody. Upamecano was on the bench, so he was a part of the squad, but he wasn't playing. Which to me it suggests, of course, it's not COVID, because there is no way that he would be there on the bench with the rest of the players if it was COVID. And speaking of COVID, actually, we haven't heard too many incidents or cases of COVID happening at the World Cup. Maybe it's just one of these things. It's not really an issue anymore, and they've reduced testing and everything else. But a bit of a weird one. So you would hope that it's not majorly contagious, whatever it was. Could you imagine if we heard before the final that the likes of Mbappe were out sick and wouldn't make the final, it would be horrific. It would be absolutely horrific. So we'll watch that space and see how it goes. And then speaking about France going for back-to-back World Cups, this is incredible. Of course, the last time we saw that was 1998, I think, wasn't it? Yeah, Brazil. Yeah, Brazil were going for back-to-back World Cups. So they'd won the 1994 World Cup after a penalty shootout against France, and then in '98 it was, against Italy in '94, and then in '98 it was the World Cup final against France in Paris, and that was the infamous final, in which Ronaldo had whatever issues that Ronaldo had. He still played the match, but France ultimately won that 3-1, I think, in the end at that match. So yeah, back-to-back finals then, for France. Obviously, as well, I think it's worth mentioning that it's back-to-back finals for Didier Deschamps. So very good achievement for him as a manager as well. The fact that he's going for this. Very few managers actually have managed in two World Cup finals, let alone won a World Cup final as a player and won a World Cup final as a manager. So actually, I don't know if there are any managers, maybe Franz Beckenbauer. I'm trying to think if there are any managers that have actually won a World Cup as a player, won a World Cup as a manager, and been in back-to-back World Cups, if you know what I mean. Putting all of these stats that we've just spoken about together, that would actually be very interesting to know. Interestingly, so back-to-back World Cup finals as a manager, or sorry, two World Cup, not back-to-back, two World Cup finals as a manager. Franz Beckenbauer has done it for West Germany, so 1986 and 1990. I saw this on The Athletic and I was very surprised about this. So Mario Zagallo, possibly saying his name wrong, the Brazilian manager from 1998, was also the Brazil manager in 1970. So he played into, or he managed two World Cup finalists. I just think that 28-year gap is absolutely amazing. And then, of course, we have Didier Deschamps, 2018 and 2022. And can he be a winner in both of them? That's the question. Can he be a winner in both of them? Because Franz Beckenbauer and Mario Zagallo were not winners in both of their finals. They won one and lost one. So Deschamps won one, lost one, 1-2. He can set the records here. He certainly can. Thinking then about teams that have been in the situation where they've had to defend their World Cup title, basically, their trophy that they still technically hold until the final whistle at the World Cup final. It was Italy in 1938, so they managed to beat Hungary in the final, and so they defended their title. Brazil then in 1962, they played Czechoslovakia in the final. They did defend their title, so they were successful. Argentina, believe it or not, in 1990, but they were the 1986 winners, and they lost that final, so they lost to West Germany, so they didn't manage to defend their title. And then, of course, as I mentioned, with Brazil, who won in 1994 and then were defending their title against France in 98 and were not successful in doing that. They lost to France in the final. And then that brings it all down to Argentina versus France this year. Can France retain their title? Well, we'll find out in a few days, but it all remains to be seen. And just looking ahead to that match, one I don't know if it's a strength or a weakness. Well, it's a weakness based on a strength, let's put it that was identified in the match last night between France and Morocco was Mbappe's side of the field. So let's say the left-hand side, Mbappe doesn't track back. He doesn't like to track back. So the majority of the attacks that were coming through from Morocco were all coming down the right third of the field. So it was Mbappe's good friend Hakimi, the winger, and Ziyech that were taking advantage of the right-hand side here. and 53% of the Moroccan attacks were actually down the right-hand side versus 24% and 22% on the left and the middle. So they really identified that as an area of weakness for France. England did something very similar, and their stats were very similar in terms of the area that they attacked. So you would imagine that Argentina will be looking at doing something equally similar. So that was interesting as well. Yeah, as I said, so the final lineup is complete. We really look forward to these matches. What do you think of this World Cup, by the way? A lot of people have been saying that this has been a really low quality World Cup. It hasn't been great. I personally tend to agree. I haven't enjoyed this World Cup as much as other years. I don't know if it's the time of year. I don't know if it's the quality of the football. There's something a bit weird about it as well. I was just saying yesterday how there haven't been that many offsides and everything. There's something feels different about this World Cup. I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it. But anyway, let me know in the comments what you think. I personally wouldn't be supporting another World Cup in the winter. I just like it in the summer. That's where it needs to be. There's something that goes with it. I think it's the weather and everything as well. But yeah, let me know what you think. Thanks as ever for joining us. I do, and I always say this, I really appreciate the support. I really appreciate any engagement and comments as well that you leave, but do like the video if you get a chance, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to be notified of future videos, and I will speak to you soon. But until then, have a good one and enjoy the last of the football. 2 more matches to go, almost there.